UFC 302 just happened last night, and lightweight champion Islam Makhachev defended his lightweight title against Dustin Poirier by 5th round submission. Today, we are going to take a look at the fights to make after UFC 302. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. Okay, so first we'll start with the main event, Islam Makhachev by 5th round submission due to a Darce choke. Fantastic fight. I posted my immediate reaction last night, so you can go check that out. But in terms of what's next for Islam Makhachev, he is calling for a welterweight title shot, and I just don't think he's there yet. He has one title defense against a lightweight, and the one person that's waiting for him just defeated Charles Oliveira, took Islam to a split decision at like 21 years old, I think, on short notice, and I think that they need to make Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 308, which is in Abu Dhabi in October. That's a perfect main event. Islam is on home turf there. Arman Tsarukyan also from that part of the world. This will do huge numbers on that side of the world, draw a lot of eyes from the Russia, Middle Eastern side of the world. And it's also an extremely intriguing matchup when you consider the styles, because you have someone like Arman who is very skilled on the feet, and also someone that is an elite wrestler, takedown defense, scrambles, his own takedowns. I'm not sure that Arman Tsarukyan beats Islam Makhachev, but I think that Arman Tsarukyan gives Islam Makhachev his toughest test to this point. And that's why I think that the next fight for Islam Makhachev should be against Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 308 in October in Abu Dhabi. We move down from there. The main event loser, I mean, he had a fantastic showing, looked amazing, but he did lose the fight. That is Dustin Poirier. Now, there's talk of Dustin Poirier retiring. I think that if he would have gotten submitted in the first round, like I predicted, like an early submission or TKO, that he would have been like, I don't have it. I can't hang with the best anymore. But he pushed Islam Makhachev to the absolute limit. And if he decides to come back, I think that he can walk away, do whatever he wants. And I think that there's no shame in retirement at this point, as accomplished as he is. There are still a lot of big fights out there. You have potentially a 4th fight with Conor McGregor. You have potentially a Colby Covington fight at 170. Potentially a Nate Diaz fight if Nate Diaz was to come back. And you also have someone who has fought at 155 before, called out Dustin after the fight last night, said that he would love that fight while he waits, which tells us that Poirier is going to be fighting Max Holloway next, it seems like. And I think that Dustin Poirier, should he decide to come back, given that he said he doesn't want the negative energy in his life that comes with a Conor McGregor fight, a Colby Covington fight, things like that, I think he should fight another one of the good guys from the sport, an elite fighter that's looking for a big matchup. This would be a huge main event for a crowded fight night, or it could be a co-main event on a pay-per-view, and that is Alexander Volkanovski. I think that if you pair them up at 155, this will greatly boost a card. Co-main event, maybe a feature bout, something like that on a big pay-per-view. Maybe they put it in Madison Square Garden in November. Maybe they put it in the Sphere in September. One of those cards that they're looking to pack like crazy. Dustin Poirier, should he choose not to retire, I think should get matched up in a big money fight with Alexander Volkanovski, while Alexander Volkanovski waits for his shot at featherweight gold rematch with Poirier. 302, where Sean Strickland defeated Paulo Costa by split decision, which is one of the craziest scorecards I've ever seen. 49-46 for Paulo Costa. In my opinion, this fight was 50-45 Sean Strickland. It should have been 50-45s across the board. And Dana went in on that judge that said, or that gave the fight to Paulo Costa, 49-46. That's absolutely insane. I believe that Sean Strickland has earned himself a title shot, so I think that he should prepare himself to be the backup fighter for UFC 305 in Perth, Australia in August. And he should be getting the winner of the rumored title bout. And Dana all but confirmed that's the next fight at middleweight. is Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. I think that Sean Strickland should prep himself to be the backup fighter for this fight in Australia in August and then get the winner. I think that Sean Strickland in a rematch against DDP, which was an extremely close fight that a lot of people say Strickland won, that's extremely intriguing. And I also think that Strickland rematching Israel Adesanya is extremely intriguing given how badly he whooped on Izzy when they fought. I think a lot of people want to see if that was a bad night for Izzy. That's what I want to see. Was it a bad night for Izzy, or does he just have Izzy's number, period? So Sean Strickland should get the winner of DDP and Izzy. Sean Strickland's next fight, no doubt about it, should be for the middleweight belt. Now, Paulo Costa, he's in a tough spot here. They gave him a big step up to go from 7 to fight the number 1 guy in Sean Strickland, coming off of a loss just 4 months ago. And it's tough because he's a big name, but he has lost 4 out of his last 5. And his only win is over a now retired Luke Rockhold, and that was a tough fight. I think that Paulo Costa needs to work on his cardio. I think he should have been more aggressive in this fight. And I think that a perfect matchup for him, they're not going to have him fight way down in the rankings. He's not going to fight like Chris Curtis, or he's not going to fight Anthony Hernandez, somebody at the bottom of the rankings. He's going to fight somebody in the top 10. This coming weekend, we have a fight night in Louisville, Kentucky. Jared Cannonier and Nassourdine Imavov. I think that putting him against the winner is actually a doable fight. I think it makes some level of sense. Crowded fight night main event, maybe make it the co-main event in France later this year to whoever Cyril Gane's going to fight in the main event, because Nassourdine Imavov trains in France. That'd be a great fight. Middleweight is just so jammed up right now that the winner of Cannonier and Imavov is not near a title shot. You have Izzy and DDP all but confirmed to be fighting in August. I think 100% Sean Strickland gets the winner. And then you also have Hamzat and Robert Whittaker fighting in just about 3 weeks. So there's way too much going on at the very top level of middleweight to where the winner of Cannonier and Imavov is not going to be a number 1 contender. They'll probably move on to a title elimination bout. And I think that a fun fight to do for whoever wins that fight is against Paulo Costa, co-main event in France. If it's Nassourdine Imavov, if it's Jared Cannonier, then do a co-main event somewhere in the United States. Moving on from there, we have some of the bigger name winners from UFC 302. Look, this wasn't the greatest name value card. I'm not going to do matchups for winners like, Andre Lima, who misses weight and cheats 3 times at flyweight in the opening fight, or Eileen Perez, who calls out Kayla Harrison after that terrible low-level fight at 135 as the second fight of the night, biggest ovaries in the UFC. The ones that are worth talking about are Kevin Holland, Jailton Almeida, and Grant Dawson. Now, Kevin Holland bounces back up to 185, gets dropped and gets a nasty armbar finish on a technical submission against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Super exciting fight. That was the perfect fight to throw in on short notice to add a little bit of name value and excitement to this card, because it was lacking greatly. And I think that Kevin Holland should go back down to 170. He should now defend his ranking. He's ranked 15th at welterweight. I think he needs to defend his welterweight ranking, given that he has back-to-back losses at welterweight. And he needs to defend it against someone who is on a 3-fight winning streak at 170, fought on the same card, and his last loss was to Jack Della Maddalena, who is a top 5 welterweight now. I think that Kevin Holland needs to defend his ranking against Randy Brown, who just beat Zaleski dos Santos on the same card, so they're on the same timeline. Not a whole lot of damage for either guy. Randy Brown's on a 3-fight win streak. Before that, his only loss in his last few fights was to Jack Della Maddalena, who is a title contender at 170. There's no shame in that loss. Kevin Holland has looked a little rough in his last couple fights at 170. I think you have Kevin Holland defend his number 15 ranking at welterweight against Randy Brown. We move on from there. We have Jailton Almeida, who finally gets a finish at UFC 302 against Alexander Romanov, who was grabbing the fence while also not defending the choke. Romanov's just a low-level heavyweight that's strong enough to get as high as he's gotten in the rankings, up to like number 10 at one point, but now he's probably 13 or 14. Jailton Almeida finally showed a sense of urgency to get the finish. Usually he's a lay-and-pray type of guy, like the Curtis Blades fight in the first first round and the Derek Lewis win. He just does not have a sense of urgency in his last couple fights, and I like the way he looked last night. He called for the main event in France against Ciryl Gane. I don't think that they're going to do that fight. I think that you do Jailton Almeida fight up in the rankings now because he's coming off of a win against the loser of the co-main event of UFC Saudi Arabia that's coming up. You have him fight the loser of Alexander Volkov and Sergey Pavlovich. Both of these guys, I think they're ranked 3 and 5 or 3 and 6 at heavyweight right now. This is a good matchup. Put him in there with somebody that is bigger than him, stronger than him, an actual elite heavyweight, because Curtis Blaydes is now getting the interim title shot against Tom Aspinall. You have Jailton Almeida fight the loser of Alexander Volkov and Sergey Pavlovich. I think Sergey Pavlovich is going to win that fight, so most likely, in my opinion, Jailton Almeida against Alexander Volkov. We move on from there. Grant Dawson, not the most impressive win, not the most exciting win, but he got the job done against a game Joe Solecki in the first round, almost got caught in a guillotine, dominated on the ground. It was a good showing. He is 20-1, 21-1, something like that. And he got knocked out by Bobby Green in his test in the rankings. Got first as a ranked fighter, got knocked out by Bobby Green in about 20 seconds. I think that you have him fight the loser, because here's the thing. That type of performance is not enough to get into the rankings, especially at 155. There's so many exciting fighters. A lay and pray, top control type of win is not going to move you up that much in this division. So I think you have him fight the loser of Bobby Green and Paddy Pimblett at UFC 304. And the reason that I say that is because if Bobby Green wins, they're going to have him fight up in the rankings because Bobby Green is a good name, and coming off of a win over Paddy Pimblett, they'd have him fight somewhere up in the rankings, maybe a Benoit Saint-Denis or a Dan Hooker, something like that. If Paddy Pimblett wins, he's going to be ranked, and they're not going to have him fight somebody outside of the rankings. Paddy Pimblett has a big fan base. The UFC likes him. He's going to be fast-tracked. If he wins and gets into the rankings, he's going to get a top 10 opponent. And maybe even a top 5. Maybe fight like a Gamrot if he beats Bobby Green. So that's why you give Grant Dawson the loser of these two. You give a grappling heavy Paddy Pimblett to a guy that is also grappling heavy in Grant Dawson if he loses, or you run it back with Bobby Green and Grant Dawson to see if he can right that ship from that 20 or 30 second KO that he had in his first main event. So that's what I think for the UFC 302 fights to make. You do Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan, Dustin Poirier and Alexander Volkanovski if Poirier does not retire. Sean Strickland gets a title shot next against the winner of Izzy and DDP. Paulo Costa, fight night main event, or maybe in France as the co-main event. If it's Nasruddin Imavov, but you have him fight the winner of Nasruddin Imavov and Jared Cannonier, which is this coming weekend. Kevin Holland to defend his ranking against Randy Rude Boy Brown. Jailton Almeida against the loser of Volkov and Pavlovich, who are fighting in Saudi Arabia in just a couple weeks. And Grant Dawson against the loser of Paddy Pimblett and Bobby Green. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you want to see Islam move up to 170, or do you think he's got more work to do against guys like Tsarukyan or Gamrot at 155 before they give him a double champ shot? So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you want access to extra content aside from my regular videos, click the link in the description down below to become a channel member and get access to members only live streams and other bonus perks. Or click the join button on our channel homepage. And if you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, check out my weekly podcast, the Hissyfit podcast, and check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World. I'll have them both linked in the description down below. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.